What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Join me for another semi-unbraggy project that I take on and try to do for my wife. And I try to get this up and my audio recording done without a lot of children screaming in the background. So today I'm bringing you along as I finish up the front porch addition that I did on our home. The last few videos I did kind of walked you through me doing the concrete and doing some tear out and some demo, and we decided we wanted to make this area a covered area on the front of our porch, as you can see me explaining from the top of the ladder here. So we had a little bit of an overhang that extended over our front porch area. That was the concrete area that I had to demo out from the damage to the house. So I worked to cut that section of roof line that extended down back so that it matched the rest of the soffit height or soffit depth on the home. So I basically had to cut it back and then rebox it in like basically to match the rest of the soffits on the home, and that way I'd kind of start laying out how I wanted my lean-to roof to be. I really wanted to do this project and tie the roof line into the existing roof line and do more of a change in pitch out of the roof, but the cost would have gotten to be quite a bit more than a lean-to style. I'm not the biggest fan of a lean-to style from the road visible side, but it came out really good at the end. I am satisfied with it. It serves the purpose we want it to serve. It's a much more enjoyable space to go outside and be able to sit and enjoy that area, especially in full sun. So I didn't go so far as to try to tie it into the roof line, especially this being an L-shaped home. I didn't know what I would even do. I would have had to have changed the pitch on two sides of the roof. So there, I had boxed in the end of the soffit, and then you can see the 2x6 that I ran. I basically just kind of came up with the angle based off of where it was going to meet the other house, where the metal, or the other side of the house, where the metal was going to come up to the drip edge of the existing roof, and then where I was going to have enough room to bring the roof underneath of the gutter section on the other part of the house. That's the screaming I'm talking about when I'm trying to edit a video. So I did pin my post to the concrete at the bottom. I didn't want to use a post bracket and elevate them off of the ground. I did end up going with cedar on the post, which ended up being substantially more costly than pine, but it does hold up a lot better over the long run. So to try to get my 6x6s up and get the majority of the rough frame in place, I just kind of skipped along and put up the essential rafters that I needed to be able to put my post and support beam in, or support band on the outside, which sometimes things like this can be fun to do on your own, but I actually do enjoy working on my own quite a bit and being able to kind of let my thoughts and creativity over what I kind of want things to be flow better without having to try to explain what I'm doing to somebody else if they are helping me. So I'm basically just working my way across and trying to, get things level, get posts set, get the support band in place. That way I can kind of just keep leapfrogging down, placing rafters. I figured my notch based off of the angle, and kind of just once I put the first one up there, I kind of marked the beam to see what it would be, because I didn't really make this roof, like I didn't gauge this pitch. I just made it work with what I needed it to be, and I knew I was going to metal the roof, so I wasn't really necessarily worried about the slope because I wasn't doing shingles or anything. So like I said, just kind of working my way down, leapfrogging, continuing to get my post in place and my support beam. And to pin them into the concrete, I actually used like basically a galvanized bolt, and drilled into my concrete, and then drilled obviously up into the bottom of my 6x6 and squared everything up, and then set the post on there so they wouldn't move around. Um, that may not be the way everybody wants to do it, but that's how I did it. So it is what it is. I don't care if you don't like it. So here I'm just trying to get a layout on my sheeting. I did decide to go ahead and sheet this so that I didn't have to do a bunch of furring strips, and I wanted the roof to be more solid. I also didn't want to have any leaks or issues, so I wanted to put an underlayment under it. So I obviously did factor in the 5/8 sheeting whenever I set my rafter heights, so that way I didn't get too tall and get my metal beyond the edge of my roof or my drip edge. So basically just square things off, nail it down with my nailer, and stagger my joints. I did throw roof clips in there between my sheets to kind of give some room for thermal expansion. It was actually a pretty fun project. I did do some math. Okay, so if you're wondering about how wide this is, from the inside of my support beam to the house is about 10 feet. It's obviously a little bit wider than that because I have a little bit of an eave that sticks over past it. But if you do the calculations, I'm right at my original roof rafters are on 2-foot centers, so that's what I matched it up off of. I also used another 2x6 to run and support underneath of all of the rafters once I was done, but they're sistering to the rafters. Now, I did not extend them into the house because I ended up using a support board to catch the tails of all the rafters where they're hitting the house. Here I'm obviously, you saw me cut, I did a chalk line, got my eave squared up, cut all the ends of the rafter tails off to plumb, and then put my outside gutter board on. But you can, if you look back at where they're touching the house, you can see where they're sistered to the original rafters. Now I can finish up the rest of my sheeting because I've got my outer gutter board on. Like I said, I kind of figured out my layout as far as my bird mouth on the end of my rafters. Once I had kind of figured out the pitch that I wanted, like I said, this is how I built it. I know there's going to be a lot of people say, well, I build it differently. That's fine. Build it however you want. It's your house. This is my house. So I'm pretty happy with the way everything came out, though, in the end. Like I said, I did want to sheet it because I feel like it does make life a lot easier as far as screwing down sheeting, and I don't have to try to put my screws in any one spot and make sure that I'm hitting my strips or anything. This gives me flexibility to kind of go wherever I want on the sheets, and it's a lot stiffer. I can get up on top of it. I can walk around, blow off leaves. I don't have to worry about stepping through or crushing the metal or creasing anything. I know you're going to say I'm doing this backwards, and I basically did, but because of where my drip edge and the edge of my roof was, I started at the top because I wanted to try to tuck this back underneath of that drip edge to get as much waterproofing as I could pushed back underneath of the edge of the roof. So yes, it is technically backwards. You would want to start at the bottom if you were papering a new roof. And yeah, you can see me fighting the wind, trying to basically undo everything that I'm doing, and it will fully undo it here in just a moment, and I'll have to start all over from square one. And that's just the way stuff goes when you're trying to work on things. So here, yes, you can see that I did lap it the correct direction. So it is lapped over so that any kind of moisture will go on down and out to the edge of the roof. But like I said, being as this is right up against the house, I just wanted it to be a little bit more sturdy. I wanted to have that paper on there and protect it. I got ready to nail it backwards here, but I did fix it. So we all make mistakes. One thing you will see in a moment, and I did when I was in the process of trying to figure out what I wanted to build, I used some treated lumber for my outer rafters, and a friend of mine gave me a good piece of advice and asked if I was able to put trim coil metal over said treated lumber, and I said, don't know. I've never really looked into it. And that was a good question that he asked because I had not ran into this before. If you're doing any kind of outside project and you may plan on wrapping treated lumber, you need to put some type of a membrane paper over it or use non-treated, because this newer treating methods that they use copper to infuse treated lumber. It will cause a galvanic corrosion to occur with aluminum trim metals. So you will see me wrap one of the pieces of treated lumber. I only used treated because I didn't know if I was going to stain it or not initially, but then I decided to do some trim wrap. So I am putting on my sheeting, obviously, and one thing that I prefer to do, and you'll notice, I do not put my screws in the flats of the metal. This is something I've helped a few people do, pole barns and some other things with metal sheeting. I also work with a steel crew from time to time in the commercial construction industry. And, you know, of course, commercial roofs are not screwed down a lot of times. They are seamed together, so you don't have a lot of exposed hardware. But something that I prefer to do is put the screw in the high rib, get a little bit longer screw, and then your seal washer screws not setting in that flat where all your water's running to create further leaks. So obviously I'm trying to get some trim coil. A lot of people ask questions about the lean-to roof that I did on my parents' house, and this is basically the exact same thing that we did on their house. And we put a trim coil flashing back up under the edge of the shingle, lapped it back plenty far enough to where we shouldn't have any issues with moisture backtracking, nailed it off underneath of the edge of the shingle course, and then I will screw it into the high ribs as well. But this is, you know, basically a standard flashing method to go ahead and run that out. You could probably tar the edge of the shingle down to it if you really wanted to. I don't think I was going to have any issues, so I did not do that. I did go with tongue and groove pine on the underside. I wanted it to look nice once I got done. I didn't want to have vinyl or anything other cheap material looking on there, so I did use tongue and groove 1x6 knotty pine. I'm trying to think of anything else. I did wire it, and I utilized the wiring from the existing light pole. If you go back a couple of videos where I was reworking the patio, I utilized some of the electric from the old light pole in the yard and pulled that up to a GFI and then ran it up to a light switch and then ran it up and ran a couple of can lights underneath of the awning. So that way we did have, I also put another plug that is on the other side of the beam from where I'm working right now up on the ceiling. So that way later on I will be able to have a spot to plug in lights. If I wanted to run Christmas lights or something like that, I've got an up high plug. And I decided to wrap out the treated lumber with 1x cedar so that everything kind of tied together and looked good, and I didn't have a lot of various different types of wood. So I did take my trim coil stock. I just bought a large roll of 2 foot by 50 foot roll of trim coil that matched my existing trim coil metal on the house, and I took it to our shop where I have a metal brake, and I had all my measurements, and I was able to break my metal at our shop where I work every day, and then bring those back home and then install. So I didn't have any footage of doing my trim metal, but it was something I was able to accomplish myself. I didn't have to have somebody do that for me. I didn't get a good picture. I did trim the entire gutter board out, even up underneath of the other eave, but I didn't get a good picture of that whenever I was trimming this out. I had to make another piece to get it to go all the way up. So here is where I'm talking about I added in some more roof sheeting wrap and covered this piece of treated on the end, which was a great piece of information that I was fortunate enough to hear about before I put my trim metal over this piece of treated lumber. I don't know how long it would take for it to actually corrode your trim metal, but I figured just so I didn't have to mess with it later, I'd go ahead and take a little bit of my extra sheeting or roof wrap and cover this. So again, nothing crazy, um, entertaining. Just trying to get my metal put in and get things cut around the beam and all of that. I did decide to go ahead and add in some drip edge before I put my gutter on out at the edge of my metal roof, just to try to discourage anything from back traveling and getting to my lumber, especially since I just made my trim metal basically an L break. It doesn't go back at all underneath of my metal roofing to cover that edge of the lumber. I did utilize the existing gutter that was on that part of the house. I just bought some new end caps, touched them up with some spray paint as close as I could to match it. They didn't have any in tan, so I cut my gutter for what I needed to fit, put new end caps on it, sealed it up. Also went ahead and put newer style hangers on it instead of the old nail style, and or maybe mine were originally screwed, but they were just screwed in the very back. So I put the newer style hangers on them that have more of like a 1/4 inch drive long screw, and those are by far the best thing if you ever have to take the gutter section back down, or just shift anything around. The newer brackets work far better. So basically, this is kind of the end of the video. We appreciate you hanging out with us, and we really do appreciate all the support on the channel. As always, thanks, and we hope to see you on the next video. Take care and have a good day.